One. All right, guys, we are live. Welcome back to the Bottom of the Ninth podcast. I'm your host, Elijah, here at Baseball Express, and today we have the pleasure of having the Glove Cowboy. I like to call you Glove Cowboy because that's just what I've known you as forever, but his name is Eric Walbridge with Marucci. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about some baseball stuff here.
Yeah, man. Hey, we're super pumped to have you. I know if anyone's tuned into our blog posts and stuff, we've had Eric on before. We've had a conversation about his gloves and what he does, but we wanted to get a little bit more intricate with it because he's a pretty interesting person, I'd say. So what's going on, man? How the holidays been? Been pretty solid. Y'all working hard over there. Obviously, for holidays with any retailer, it's pretty busy, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always last minute trying to get everything out the door, hit your deadlines for Christmas deliveries and all that, and we had a pretty big end of the year, so it was it's a good problem to have, scrambling to get all the products out. That means your brand is hot and people want it. So busy's good, right? I mean,
busy's always good. That's for sure.
It's a good sign. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. So are you originally from California? I know you played at Berkeley. Where are you from, brother?
I'm from Los Angeles originally, small town, just close to like Santa Monica area. So, and then I went to school up in Northern California at UC Berkeley. Played baseball there for a couple of years, and then moved back down to LA. And now I'm living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Baton Rouge, that's a pretty big change. Yeah. So
it is.
So you were a pitcher, right? You were a pitcher, correct?
Yes, I was a pitcher there, but mostly I was a cheerer of the rest of the team from the bench. But technically in the roster, I was listed as a pitcher. Yeah, that's true. As a pitcher,
yeah. I mean, you had to have done pretty solid, dude, to go play Berkeley, man. That's bigger than anything I've done. Shit, that's a pretty solid school. I mean, did you get recruited a lot out of high school? Were you a flamethrower? Were you kind of like a mid-90s guy? Or were you a kind of like a finesse guy?
I was, like a mid to low 90s kind of fastball, but I'm a 5'10" righty, so my ceiling and projectability was probably pretty low. Plus labrum surgery and Tommy John, so it was.
That'll get you.
Yeah, I think I was definitely a max effort guy, so injuries are just part of that, and I enjoyed it. I loved my time up in Berkeley. We had a great team. All the years that I was there, and even though I was hurt most of the time, I met some great friends that I still have today, and teammates that went on to play in the majors or in the minors or whatever. So it was pretty awesome. Plus the education was obviously at the forefront of that. So
Berkeley's a good school, dude. Yeah, man. So like you said, I know you were hurt a lot. So you had I thought you said you just had shoulder. You had Tommy John and labrum surgery.
Yeah, I tore my labrum my senior year of high school going into college. Rehabbed for about, whatever it was, 12 months, 14 months, something like that. Came back to pitch in the collegiate summer league. My first start back, I tore my UCL. So then I was out for another, whatever it was, 14
I can't catch a break.
Months. Yeah, so again, max effort guy, small righty. Put a lot of stress on the
I feel that
ligaments and cartilage there.
I feel that on so many levels, bro. I'm like a 5'9" right-handed. I was a right-handed pitcher for a while. I was another max effort guy. It took everything to hit. I would sit like at my like peak. I would sit like 91, 93, top like 94, but it took it was like everything into like every single pitch. Yeah, that doesn't last very long. I don't think.
No, it does not.
It doesn't last very long. But so your playing career ends over at Berkeley, and was there ever like a plan? Did you ever think about getting into coaching? Was the game always something that you wanted to stay involved in in some capacity? Was that pretty much at the forefront of your head, or was there any other career choices you thought about going into, or how'd that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to stay around the game, pretty much in any capacity. I never really considered coaching just because, I don't know, I'm definitely not an extrovert. I'm not a big talker, and, so I didn't think I would be the greatest coach anyway. So, but I did know that I wanted to be in baseball, and I was always interested in product and design and development. So that's kind of the direction that I wanted to go in. But I would have taken anything at that point to just stay around the game. So whether that's sports marketing or, sports management of some sort. So,
Yeah.
I knew baseball was where I wanted to be. I was pretty much willing to do whatever it took to stay in that, in that
To stay
realm.
around. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I know like we've talked to quite a few. We've had Jose on here. We had another guy yesterday. I was talking to a buddy I played junior college with. He plays pro ball now, and we talked to John King. He plays with the Rangers, and like it's one of those things that I always like to ask because it's like sometimes when the game ends, it's like those guys want to stay in. And a lot of times they go the coaching route. That's just kind of like the generic way to go. And it's just to stay in the game. They go the coaching route. So I wanted to ask, because, you never know. I mean, some guys like they can go the product route. Like we have guys here that played some pro ball, guys that play, big time D1, and they go into this role, which is like sales. But it's still around the game. So it's interesting to see different takes on how they chose their path to stay around sports or stay around baseball in some capacity. So you left, so you graduated from UC Berkeley, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you graduated. And I know you went to Easton for a while. Did that happen right after graduation, or how did that process go? How did you get there?
Yeah, so as soon as I graduated, I was a winter graduate, so I stayed an extra semester,
Mm-hmm.
so 4.5 years.
Same here.
Got to. My now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was finishing up her college career at Arizona State.
Okay.
So that was kind of the second half of that semester, which is in the spring. So I thought it was a pretty solid idea to try to get a job at a spring training facility because
that would be sick. Yeah.
So I knew she was going to take some time to graduate, and then we could move back together in June back to LA. But in the meantime, I was living in Tempe, Arizona, right when I graduated, living with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I was working at the Brewers spring training facility in Maryvale, which I was doing everything from ticket sales to promotion ideas to putting up banners in the outfield and actually dressing up as one of the as the mascot one of the days, which was
way
in the heat of Arizona. It was a pretty warm day, but
that can be brutal.
But it was fun. It was a cool experience, and again, just being around baseball, I got to. One of the coolest things I got to do while I was there was the music in between innings, which I thought was pretty cool. It's also very nerve-wracking because it's like a bad word slips in there. It's like you're playing it in front of thousands of people and it's all on you. So
that's not uncommon, man. I went to, because here in San Antonio, obviously I'm in San Antonio, Texas, we have the Missions, which is, I think they're affiliated with either the Brewers or the Padres. Now, I know for a long time they're with the Padres. Now I think they got bought out. Now they're with the Brewers, but crazy stuff happens at those games, man. The minor leagues are a grind, and like it's a pretty like, it's kind of a weird area, but that stuff happened. Dude, I can't tell you the amount of times I've been at Missions games and something like that happens, and they kind of just like gets glanced over. So it's not as much pressure as it may seem like. I guess more from behind the scenes, it seems like more pressure, but like no one really. It's one of those things. But so you're out in Tempe, Arizona, and so you're doing all that kind of cool stuff over there, and so I guess she graduates and y'all make your way back to California. And then did Easton reach out to you? And I mean, Easton's huge. Easton's a great brand. I mean, that had to have been something really cool. That's a big step. How did that whole thing unfold?
It's funny because where my wife's family lives, where we ended up moving back to is Van Nuys, California. It's in the Valley.
Okay.
So I just happened to look at job openings that had to do with sports and near Van Nuys, and at the time Easton was headquartered in Van Nuys, California, so it kind of just like it
was perfect timing,
sparked an idea. And it was an internship, it was a marketing internship, and I kind of just applied to it. Easton did sponsor Berkeley, so when I was playing there, we did have some connection to the brand a little bit, so that definitely I think helped. I went to work there as an intern, and it was like a 9-month, one and done kind of thing. And I was hoping that it would turn into a job, and luckily, later on it did. But yeah, it was just
awesome.
Just an internship that popped up on my Indeed or whatever.
That is insane. That's so cool. But that's crazy how that works out, right? That was where you're going back, and they happened to be there at the time. That's insane. That's like, it was meant to be at some capacity, I would say. But so the glove, for sure. So the whole glove thing, I know you're obsessed with gloves, and I like to say I am too, but not on the level of you are. That's you, like, you embody it completely. The Glove Cow, was that always your handle on Instagram, or did that whole thing kind of blow up? Because I know that whole thing kind of exploded when you got to Easton. That's where I found out about you. How did that whole thing transform? How did that whole thing become like how did you embody that and like become the Glove Cowboy?
Yeah, so when I first started on Instagram, I wanted to use, a place to kind of buy and sell and trade, and that was kind of where
Yeah.
all that was happening at the time. I think, it was starting to become a place that was taking over from other, older, like, not to say that people don't still use, Facebook Marketplace or softball fan forums or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's still obviously very popular today. But this just became a way to kind of show off, your collection a little bit more and post pictures and a way to talk about things. So I started an account. I think my first name was something super generic, like, Glove Guy or Glove Hub or
Glove
Glove,
guy. Yeah.
some sort of pun of some sort.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I was living at my now wife's parents' house. And long story short, the bed sheets that I had at the time had a cowboy print on them. So like a horse and a cactus and a cowboy leaning against a fence or something.
Yeah.
And and I started taking all my glove photos using that as like the backdrop for it.
Yeah.
So then it kind of just became like, oh yeah, the guy with the
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 cowboy
cowboy
stuff.
sheets with his gloves, or like the glove with the cowboy sheets. So I just kind of took that and shortened it to just Glove Cowboy,
Glove
and
Cowboy.
it kind of just stuck ever since. And it's kind of a
Dang.
random name, because when people meet me or like see me for the first time, they're like, "Why are you a cowboy? You're like the furthest thing from a cowboy looking person."
That's like what I was thinking. I was like, I mean, like, cause I was like, you're from LA and then you went to Arizona for a bit. I'm like, you're nowhere near, like, now you may be more cowboy. You're in Louisiana, but even then that's more like Cajun stuff. That's not really cowboy. You're not from Texas. It's like, where did the cowboy come in? So I just kind of wanted to know. And I think a lot of people probably didn't know that whole thing, cause that's probably dated back for a while, but that's super interesting. So that's where the cowboy came from.
Yes,
That's
wild.
The
original name. Has nothing to do with like me as a person.
As an individual.
More just like it kind of just happened. Based on bed sheets. Who knew?
There you go, dude. So at that point, I mean, so you've always kind of had a thing for gloves. I mean, as a glove collector, I mean, that's kind of like, that was where, I mean, your passion was in the gloves. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, again, when I was pretty injured in college and I had a lot of downtime, and so I kind of used that to sort of, relace teammate gloves or break in gloves for guys, and it kind of helps me learn a little bit about gloves and the nuances of what goes into them and all the different parts and materials and what makes this pattern different than this pattern, and what does this web do that's different than this web. And I kind of just took that, and then when I went to go work in on the product side of baseball, I actually wasn't involved in gloves at all. Like I said, I started as a marketing intern, and then when I finally got into product, I was developing accessories and then helmets for a while before I got into gloves. So, which was good because it helped me learn a little bit about the development process and kind of how it all works. But I started out doing everything from eye black to like pop up turtles and like $2 items to $400 items, because accessories all over the place. But I knew I always wanted to be in gloves eventually, but I kind of had to just, buy my time and hope that something opened up. So eventually the guy who was doing gloves went on to work somewhere else, and there was an opening, and I finally got my chance. So that was kind of how it all unfolded.
Yeah, I remember. I know way back then, Easton did those small batch gloves. Did you have anything to do with those at all? Because those were kind of cool. Those were kind of sick. Oh, you did? Okay.
Small batch was like the only thing that I did at Easton as far as the gloves.
Yeah.
The stock side I had a little bit to do with, but it was really at the tail end because things can take a year, 2 years to develop.
For production. Yeah.
So I did some stuff there at the end, but not really enough to affect like the catalog or what goes to retail and stuff like that. But the small batch stuff was the first thing I really did that was kind of my own initiative, where I was start to finish and could implement some of my own ideas into it. So
Yeah. Well,
It
those were sick, man. Those were sick gloves. I got to be honest. I used to have one, but then I think we took it or something happened to it. It was in my office. Those things were sick. Yeah.
Well, I
Those were
appreciate that.
cool.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah,
that
man.
turned into, like the night shift stuff that we're doing at Marucci now
Hmm.
is you know even a step further from that, and really showcases a lot of the creativity of Marucci, and that was kind of like the stepping stone to what we're kind of doing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I think to get to this point, like where you're at now, man. I know you're a super humble guy, so I know I talked you up a little bit, but man, you've done some really like some really crazy stuff, man. Like there's some good stuff you're doing. Like it's super exciting. Like the gloves you make, I tune in every day. I'm like, what's this guy cooking up? Like I'm looking all the time, and I'm sure, like obviously, I'm one in like the thousands that are looking at your stuff. So you're doing some really good stuff. Like your work speaks for itself. I mean, in all honesty, and that's how it goes, man. I guess to get to that point, you got to bide your time, like you said, and get to that. Work those stepping stones to get to where you're at now. And I mean, honestly, I love, we work as obviously I'm with Baseball Express, so we work with a lot of different brands, but I'm a Marucci like fanboy, dude. Like I've loved Marucci since like forever, before they made gloves, when they were still just wood bats. Before I think they like tapped into like metal bats before my time, but like wood bats, I've just like loved Marucci wood bats since like forever. But so I'd say
Yeah,
going to
this
Marucci's
this
a pretty
brand is
yeah.
Marucci is incredible. Their
Oh
story is
yeah.
amazing. Starting from, it's so hard to go from like a wood bat company to a full baseball product company. Like
Oh
you
dude,
see,
yeah.
there's
It's
so
insane.
many wood bat companies out there, and none of them really, it's very, very difficult to go from something of that
Yeah.
specific nature to, something like what Marucci has been able to do is incredible. While
Yeah.
still maintaining their, number one position in the MLB market share.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
It's crazy. This brand is pretty incredible when it comes to the speed at which they've kind of grown and been able to stay at a position on the thing that they started out doing. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. So now we're getting into Marucci. So I know you said you stayed there for a bit at Easton. Obviously it was a pretty short tenure. I mean, and then, so did Marucci reach out to you? Was that another thing where it's just kind of like, I'm going to scroll through and see what I find, and Marucci was there? How did that one happen?
I think that one too was just it was good timing all around. A friend of mine who had been kind of a force in the Colt glove world for a long time, Scott Carpenter, who had his own
Right.
um, workshop and brand, was being purchased by Marucci at the time, and
Okay.
simultaneously they didn't have anybody leading their glove category. And I think Scott had recommended that, they asked me if it's something I would be interested in doing. And
Oh,
so
okay.
it kind of was one of those things where I hadn't really considered doing going anywhere else, but
Hmm.
the timing lined up, and I was on a flight. Like I said, I met with the CEO of Marucci, Kurt Ainsworth, who's like the most charismatic, enthusiastic, like it's a guy you want to kind of go to battle with.
Yeah. 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 I know what you
His
mean.
personality is very infectious. So it
Right.
was
Right.
pretty easy for me after having like one conversation with him to be like, all right, I want to be a
I'm,
part of this
I'm
brand
coming.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
the sky is honestly the limit. Like their growth potential is huge. Their
Hmm.
their cool factor is huge. Like
Yeah.
you can only go up. That's the way I've felt, and so
Yeah.
it was a pretty easy decision. So like within a few weeks, I was moving to Baton Rouge. Like it was really
That's
fast.
insane. So
Yeah.
okay, now I got to ask, not necessarily in conjunction with baseball with this. I got to ask. So coming, you went so you lived in LA pretty much, California, your whole life. You went to
Yep.
Arizona for that short stint, then back to California. What has it been like moving from Cali to Baton Rouge, Louisiana? What is that culture shock? How did that go?
You know, it was definitely very different.
Yeah,
The the
I would
people,
say so.
yeah, the people in the South though, like it's more than a stereotype about Southern hospitality. Like everyone is so nice
Hmm.
and friendly and
Hmm.
helpful, and
Yeah.
it was almost like I thought they were messing with me at first. They were so like generous with their like,
It's one of those things.
can I
Yeah.
help you with this? Can I do this? Do you need this for your house? Like, how are you guys
Yeah.
settling in? I'm like,
Hmm.
am I being punked? Like, what is happening right now? Because LA, I lived in an apartment. I didn't
Yeah.
even know the
Yeah.
people I shared walls with, and I have like neighbors coming over
Yeah.
now and like trying to do all this stuff. So that
Yeah.
made the adjustment, pretty amazing. The
Yeah.
The summer heat was the first thing where I was like, oh man, this is different. The humidity and all
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
But then, on the pros side of things, like the cost of living is great at the time. Like gas was
Oh
super
yeah.
cheap. I was like looking around. I'm like, this is like LA is kind of ridiculous when it comes to all this stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you got
Yeah.
amazing weather. You got the beach. You got the mountains. Like I love LA. My family still lives there. My in-laws still
Mhm.
live there. But the cost of living, man, it's great. So that made it a
Especially
lot
now, man.
easier.
Yeah, especially now, it's a little bit. It's even crazier now. But I mean, yeah, now all your Californians are coming to where we're at. They're coming to Texas. They're coming to
Right.
Austin and San Antonio, and
Yeah.
it's getting nuts. But that's all. Nuts. I just wanted to ask what you thought about Louisiana, because Louisiana's I've been to Louisiana a couple of times. Obviously, and when I was playing ball, I would travel over there. We'd go to Baton Rouge. We'd go to Bossier. I think it's Bossier Parish over there. It's kind of near. It's kind of like an hour or two outside of Baton Rouge. It's kind of near there. So I'm familiar with Louisiana. You also have casinos, so that's also it too. That's pretty sick. So I
Hmm.
mean, y'all got a lot of cool stuff. I'm a fan of Louisiana. I don't mind it. And for me, I like the dip. So dip is also a lot more cheaper than it is
There
over
you
there than
go.
it is in
It
Texas.
is.
So it's one of those things. But plenty of pros and cons out there. But so you get to Marucci, and so what was, I know you said, so they, you had to talk with the CEO and everything, and you were on board. I know plenty of people, and those are the best kind of people to work for, that just infects you. Like you talk, you hear their plans, and it's just something you want to hop on board with. That's super awesome, man. So what was I guess not your mission, but what was the idea? Because they had been making gloves before, and I know, I guess it was the Founder Series that came out probably in 13, 14, 15 that they kind of released. So
Mhm.
obviously before you got there, what was the goal? What was, he was like, we're going to do this glove thing, and we're bringing you in, obviously you have a lot of insights, you have a lot of creative flow with you. What was the goal? What was your position to do when you got to Marucci?
Yeah, I mean, I think they built a solid foundation. It's hard to break
Mm-hmm.
into the
Mm-hmm.
glove market. You have, heritage brands that have been
Right.
around for 100 plus years, and
Mm-hmm.
there's
Right.
a pretty high barrier to entry as far as a new brand in that space, because you know how gloves are. It's a very old school sort
Oh,
of
it's tough.
traditional classic
Mm-hmm.
mentality. So they did, I think
Yeah.
Marucci at the time, they did a great job getting into the market, having, as far as
Mm-hmm.
quality, glove patterns and options are concerned. Like they did
Absolutely.
a great job. My
Yeah.
sort of thought, I guess, at the time was to find out, different ways to differentiate ourselves, because at this point, and like other products in this industry, is that everybody can make a good blank, good glove, good bat,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
what can you do to separate yourself from another? Because when
Mm-hmm.
everybody's materials are
Yeah.
good, everybody's manufacturing capabilities are good. How do you really set yourself apart? Because if we're going head to head against a heritage brand making heritage looking things, like we lose
Mm-hmm.
some authenticity because we're not that old of a brand. We don't have that
Right.
legacy at this point.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so, on the wood bat side in particular, it's kind of an analogy there, is that, you go against a legacy brand, like, not to pick on anyone, but like, Louisville Slugger had been in the space for a very long time, and
Mm-hmm.
Marucci found a way
Yeah.
to kind of dethrone them by, by
Yeah.
other means than, whether it's consistency or different paint finishes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Cause at
Yeah.
the end of the day, everybody has the potential to get good wood. Everybody can get good leather. It's how you
Yeah.
utilize that, your consistency, or um, your aesthetic, your cosmetics. And I think sneaker
Mm-hmm.
culture has played a big role in kind of evolving the baseball world. That's sort of
Yeah.
been further behind other sports as far as like
Mm-hmm.
keeping up with more trends. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's changed in the small amount of time that I've been in this industry. And I think I saw gloves kind of going the same way, where it's like an accessory item that you
Yeah.
can
It is.
showcase your individuality. Because if you look at a baseball field, right, it's all uniforms, same hats. There's even restrictions
Same. Yeah.
on
Same
cleats at
jerseys.
the
Yeah.
MLB level, that they've eased up on that.
Yeah.
Wood bats, you can't really,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain amount of colors you can use, and gloves are kind of the only thing where you can really have fun. And you're seeing more and
And
more
yeah, have some
players
flair
like
to it.
wanting to show their individuality and personality. So that was kind of the goal for us, was to capture that. How do we take someone's personality who doesn't necessarily want just an all tan or all black, but they want to showcase
Mm-hmm.
themselves a little bit, And the way to do that was through gloves, which is something that I've always been kind of passionate about. Is not that it's
Yeah.
functionally different. Like the leather itself is always going to be good, but how do you make the aesthetic and the cosmetic um, stand apart from others that also have good gloves?
Right.
Because it's
Yeah.
it's a tough again, it's a tough barrier to entry when you're just going at it from a quality standpoint. Because everybody has good quality.
Right. Yeah, everyone. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I know, like, I forgot who I was talking to. We were talking about bats. I mean, there's hundreds of glove companies. You got like all these small time, you got all the Mexican brands that like Rolling and Barrazi. You have those guys that make really good gloves, but they're not on a high level. I was talking to my buddy who plays pro ball. He uses this other brand called Dream Glove. There's another one there. There's a bunch of small time, 44. There's a whole bunch of glove companies, but there's always the few, and then there's like the top tier, which is like your Rawlings, your Wilson, your now Marucci, like all these guys that are doing the top tier gloves, and it's such a hard place to break into. And like I was talking with Jose Trevino a couple weeks ago, and we were talking because he uses SR. I know y'all are Marucci, so it's like gloves and bats are such a tough barrier of entry for any new brands to come into, because people will always just go back to those founding groups like the Marucci, the Victus, because those are, tried and true. They're always going to be there. And I think you guys breaking in with creating all this cool stuff, those cool designs, and like the night shift gloves and all that. Because I mean, if you look at like, and like I said, we work with everybody. I love all brands. I'm just kind of like a guy who just like goes around, calling out Rawlings. Rawlings is one of those people who makes those heritage gloves, the traditional, the leather, the regular gloves, and they've been here forever. They do a lot of great things, but then all of a sudden you see them like last year come out with like the Rev 1X, which is like,
and I think that's awesome.
I
mean, honestly,
it is.
like,
It's way different than what they've done ever, and it's like super interesting now.
My hope is that I love seeing those brands who have been around a long time, like do things to try to reinvent themselves or push the envelope, and that's what I love to see. That competition in this market it only benefits the player and the end user. So I think the more you do that, like, you still have your stable, tried and true options, but it kind of affords you the ability to try some new stuff and see what happens and hope that, something catches on. And Wilson, again, they've also done a great job of that
They have,
over the years. Rawlings is pushing the envelope now. Like, we're hopefully pushing the envelope in different ways, but I think it's good for the game. It's good for the players. It keeps competition tight, and it keeps everything fresh. It's not like the old days where it's like
it's pretty stale. Black, tan. That's it. It's pretty lame.
It's pretty cool thing to see the evolution, because like gloves have been kind of not as modernized as other products in baseball have been over the years.
It's true.
It's really cool. It's really cool to see. I mean, it's awesome. I'm a glove guy anyway, so like, I work for Marucci. I love Marucci. I think everything, I want to beat all those other brands all the time, but at the same time, I can also appreciate that, being a baseball person and a glove person at heart, like, it's cool to see from other people. It's cool to see it.
Yeah. No, I feel that, dude. Like that's me too. I'm just like, I love all gloves, we have a retail store here, and I'm really good friends with the store manager there. So we're always talking about gloves. Like, I know we had some really exclusive Rawlings come in, but I love Wilson. And the thing with like Marucci gloves, I actually had one. I had one of the founders one, like in 2015, I had one, but they sold out. So obviously before you got there, but like you built on that. So it's like those gloves were so exclusive that they were really hard to find for a long time. And I think you're making these night shift gloves, and it's the same thing. Like, people are having a hard time finding them because they're super popular. Like, y'all are really changing the glove game and the way that they're presented, the way that people view them. Like, it is very much, I know you said earlier, like it's becoming like a very much a trending thing. Like, I've got people that like, because like, for example, like, we haven't got your night shift gloves in yet, and hopefully we can figure that out sooner or later, maybe next year at some point. But like our biggest seller, just speaking on gloves, was we did a custom, like a Texas flag one from Rawlings, a Rev 1X, and it looks sweet, dude. Like, I had people, and I posted it on my personal story, and I had people reaching out to me that don't play baseball, that have no like, they're girls, women that are like engineers, and people that are just like Texas people that are just like, I need that glove. Like, I need to buy that glove. Like, people are wanting to buy stuff like that now that have no affiliation with baseball. And it's like bleeding into different aspects of stuff. And that's super interesting to see. And like, that not only enhances the I guess the visibility of like the game and how much it's changing, but it's making baseball so much more exciting. Because let's say someone like really likes that glove and they want it like as a desk item for their office or something. They're going to see that glove and be like, oh, maybe I should like tune into more baseball stuff. And then they'll see like the bats and the gloves that people use and the cleats that are, and it's making the game so much more exciting, man. It's insane.
100%.
It's crazy.
I think tapping into that sort of collector market and mindset is great for baseball, and I think gloves are the perfect thing to do that because they're very like touch and feel item. You know, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I picture a person who, you know, sitting in their office, just kind of, you know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, just sitting around playing, having a conversation.
Have it on your hand. You know, it's a sentimental thing. You play catch with your son and daughter, and you know, it's one of those connection bonding opportunities, and it's hard to do that with a bat. Like bats are also a good souvenir item. You can hang them up, but you don't like pepper with your.
You can't just run around and you can't hit balls at your kid. That's a little. Well, I mean, you could, but it's not.
Eventually, you
not
can.
Early. Eventually, You're not going to take your 2-year-old kid and just start hitting him fungo. It's not
unless he wants to be raw when he's older. Then hey, just hit some rockets at him.
Okay, man. So getting into your creative process. So you get to Marucci, you start building on gloves. What's a day-to-day for you, man? Because I know like people see what they see on Instagram. They see you like doing the TikToks with like the gloves and you have like, we've seen your shelf in the back. I can see it there with all your gloves stacked on there. Like what's a day-to-day for you? Like where does your inspiration come from? Do you kind of scroll through and see what players are looking at, what other guys are using? Obviously as a brand, you're obviously looking at your competition, see what other people are doing. What's your creative process and what's like a day-to-day life for you?
I'm working on actually batting gloves and bags and fielding gloves now at Marucci. Okay. So it depends on the day, but the process is kind of similar. Again, I'm a pretty into sneaker and fashion, so if I see something, whether it's a colorway or a pattern or something like that, then I'm like, that could be cool as a glove. You know, try to interpret it, and create something that captures sort of the same essence in whatever I'm looking at the time.
Right.
Or, you know, if you're looking at competitor stuff, which everybody does.
Right. Yeah. It's inevitable.
And you see something that's good and you're like, could it be better? You could use that as you know, if anyone tells you otherwise, if they don't do that, that's a lie. Everybody in product development does that.
There's no way. Yeah. There's no way.
You have to.
Yeah.
But really it's anything, you know, I've been walking down the street and seen a bird and been like, that would be a sick glove colorway. Like you just never know, you know?
You never know. Yeah.
But day to day, you know, just trying, you know, some days are more administrative than others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
It's more computer work. Some days are more physical, hands-on, breaking in gloves, relacing gloves, trying to felt, different combinations of materials. And then some days, it's purely creative where you're like, I'm just going to like scroll through as many things as I can and see what sparks and see if I can just test myself, like the limitations. And that's how, honestly, a few different gloves have come to be, is just like, could that be a glove? I mean, maybe let's try it, you know, like putting a watch on a glove or a belt buckle or, you know,
I remember,
whatever.
You did
like,
that watch one was sick.
Is it functional? Maybe, but like, I think it's a lot of that stuff is just intentionally polarizing, where you're going to get the traditionalists who are like, definitely not, I hate you for doing
that sucks, that's stupid,
never want to see you again. And then you're going to get the other side of things where like, I don't personally like that, but it's really cool that you did that, you know what I mean? And that's sort of where I kind of live, is like in the realm of like, that's not my style, but that's really cool for somebody, you know?
That's cool. Yeah.
And then you get to somebody who's really into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the beauty and the beast of being on the internet. People are going to be like, and I think that goes anywhere. I run all our social pages, and like, I mean, I hadn't really felt that, honestly, because like now we're doing product reviews. I don't know if you've seen that we do product reviews. We've been doing all kinds of stuff like that with bats and stuff. Like we reviewed the Cat X, and like, you know, I'll give my thoughts on something, and then you have these idiots that are like, oh, you're stupid, that bat's trash. And I'm just like, man, like, it's my opinion. Like, it's just my thing. Like, it's one bat. Like, you don't have to like it. Like, you don't have to go with it, man. Just like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But like, that's one of the things, man. And I think like you may have a lot more scrutiny on you because baseball being like America's pastime, you know, you have all the old heads that are like, oh, I don't like, my boss is, you know, his name's Kevin, and he's super like old school, like he's getting in his 60s, and like he looks at gloves and he's like, this thing is ugly. I don't know why people would want to use this. And like you see the gloves in his office, and it's like the traditional old school, like black or tan Rawlings, and that's it. That's all he likes. And I'm like, yeah, but man, like that's cool and all, but like the game needs to evolve and it needs to change and it needs to appeal to more people. And that's where stuff like that is like, appreciate it. You don't have to love it, but appreciate it. And like, it's super cool that the game has evolved. Cause when I was playing, like this stuff didn't exist, man. Like you weren't out making gloves, and there weren't people putting like SpongeBob font and like making an elf or like a stocking glove. Like that stuff didn't exist. Like that would have been super cool to like 10-year-old me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think people maybe like our generation who like played, who are like getting into like fashion and like care about like, and that may be sneakerheads and like collecting shoes or like other fashion, like Supreme and all that stuff. These gloves are kind of hitting into that realm. And I think that's super sick, man. Like that's super cool. So going into that, what is to this day, and this may be a tough question for you to answer considering how many gloves I can see on your back shelf and I've seen in your videos. What is your, like to this day, and maybe what you're about to, maybe what you've got in production that you may not want to say yet, but what is your most favorite piece that you've made that's like super unique that you're just like, this is probably, if you can't give me one like top 3 of like, this is the coolest glove I've ever constructed, whoever I put on my hand, or like that may just be like a concept that you've made. What is the coolest one you think you've put together so far?
Oof.
That's a tough one. I know, but I have to ask.
One of my favorites, I will say, is the one that came out, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was the Christmas glove.
That one was sick.
It was just something that was, it's definitely a novelty item, but
yeah,
I'm a huge like Christmas, like I'm a nerdy Christmas guy. Plus my birthday's in December, so I love this time of year. Yeah, and I really wanted to capture something that was not only like visually wintry and Christmassy, but also like texturally. So you have the flannel on the inside, you have the shearling fur on the binding, and the corduroy on the back of the hand. Like, is this the most functional glove for playing the sport of baseball?
Absolutely
probably not. But
yeah,
you could still play catch with it, and it will look really cool on the shelf and all that. So I think that one is definitely up there as one of my favorites. Tough.
There's so many. I know you have so many floating through your head.
I do love the SpongeBob glove, and the way that glove came about. The story behind it was cool too. Is Grayson Rodriguez? He is a pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. Pretty sure he's the #1 prospect in MLB at this point. He was hurt last year anyway. Yeah. He kind of just messaged me one day and said, "Hey, I want like a glove that has SpongeBob on it in some way, or like, can you embroider SpongeBob or patch it or something?" And I said, you're a pretty high profile guy, so I don't know if I want to use the actual image of those characters tough, just for legal reasons. But I was like, let me see what I can
legal right. Yeah, I don't
come up with.
Honestly, I don't even think you would be able. You might not have even been able to do that, to be honest with you. But what came about was even cooler. Yeah,
we kind of used a similar font. It wasn't the exact font, but a similar font. And sort of the backdrop of the bikini bottom skyline with the flowers that you see in SpongeBob. So the original one that we made for Grayson said Grayson on the index finger in sort of that font. And then I got a ton of messages about it. So I'm like, you know what, let's just make this into a night shift glove and see if people like it. And it's funny because it's a pitching model, which you absolutely cannot pitch with in a game because it's like
it's too many colors,
pattern, it's
too many colors,
and all that. But that definitely is one of my favorite, and I'm a big SpongeBob guy, and so it fit perfectly. It was a pretty fun one.
So, the night shift. So I know you said night shift, and for the people that don't know, like who may know Marucci and know gloves, what is the night shift? Because there's different gloves in the night shift. So is that your brand? Like, can you elaborate more on what the night shift is and what kind of I guess collection that is?
Yeah. So night shift is a Marucci brand basically, and it came about as a way to kind of the tagline that we use is the anti-collection because it is a collection of different gloves, but they're so different that there's almost nothing that draws them and connects them other than them just being night shift gloves, like colorways, whatever. It's more of an exploratory sort of passion project, and the name night shift we came up with one day, like in a hallway, myself and Lauren Thomas, the head of marketing, and I think the head of our retail sales department, John Luke, and we were like, you know, you make these gloves that are more appeal to the masses. They're for catalog. They're for retail. They're not polarizing. They're not.
Right.
No one's gonna get offended by them. Like that's your day. That's your day job. And then you have this night shift where you come in, you're on your own, you're by yourself, and you're developing things that you like and are totally different. Like it's almost two different personalities. Like,
Okay. That makes sense. I feel
I don't
it now,
say it this way, but like our marketing person is kind of like, you know, there's Eric Walbridge, works at Marucci, wears a collared shirt and you know, whatever. And then there's the night shift Glove Cowboy that comes in backwards hat, you know, whatever, does whatever you want. And that's sort of how that different branding came into play. But yes, in theory, you could do any of our series as a night shift item. So you can have a Capital Series night shift, a Cypress Series night shift, you know, softball Magnolia Series, and hopefully, as we'll see, in hopefully the next couple weeks or months or so, that we can kind of take that night shift concept and bring it into more product categories, whether it's apparel, hats, batting gloves, you know, bags, where it's your non-traditional catalog item where it's like, it's not just a black duffel bag. It could be a purple and green and yellow and call it night shift. And, you know, it's not for everybody, but for the person who likes it, they're going to love it, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I think like stuff like that, I mean, is like, I mean, you can't walk into like a Foot Locker, you can't walk into like a Champs or like any of these like in House of Hoops or anything like that. And I say, and the way that and it's funny because like I was, you know, because I was talking to my girlfriend's dad yesterday and we were talking and I was telling him about the podcast. I'm like, oh, I'm having this guy on tomorrow. I showed him your profile. I was like, this guy's awesome. He does all these gloves. And like, he was like, that's super interesting. And like, cause then we started talking about sports and stuff. And then the only way I could relate it to him was like, if you go to like a Foot Locker, you go to a House of Hoops and you look at the shoes, like look at the patterns and look at the designs and like how much that it's changed from like when you were playing and like Jordan was wearing like the original, like the OG Jordan, like they're super traditional looking shoes, but like look at the shoe, look at how it's developed. And I'm like, that's where baseball's heading. And I think that if, and this is just my opinion, like you don't need to take it, whatever. I'm thinking if you guys put that stuff into market, like you guys make those wild colors, that is like trending right now on every level in fashion and shoes and everything. That colorful stuff, that the wild looking patterns, like that is what's like happening right now, man. Like if y'all were to put that out there, I think that if you stocked it, it would go, bro, because people would love it. People would literally love it.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm going to try to say this very like gently and, you know, lightly, but you brought up your boss and, you know, very traditionalist, but a lot of times when, you know, we do our sales meetings with different retailers, we're presenting to buyers, not necessarily end users. So sometimes
I know.
There's a contrast there. But I agree with what you're saying. 100%.
It's funny that you say that because like obviously I don't know if you'd heard of Baseball Express before. You know, we became acquainted and you worked with Marucci. I don't know if you heard of us before.
Oh, of course. Dude, I've been getting Baseball Express catalogs since I was a kid.
There you go. So it's funny that you say that because we've like recently, like we've had a pretty big makeover. Obviously COVID set us back a bit. And then, you know, we kind of had some change in personnel in the marketing department. And like I came in and I kind of do a bunch of random stuff. Like this podcast is something that I don't think we would have ever done if I didn't like kind of pitch it and say, hey, there's like a lot of personalities in the game. We need to talk to players. And then the whole thing was like, okay, like what can we do? Cause like everyone knows it's like you said, like the catalogs and playing back. And it's like almost like a generational divide of like me, you, like my friends, friends, like people I played JUCO with, people I played in college with in high school. Everybody knew about us in that generation. Right. And it's like, okay, is that kind of like a baseball thing? Like there's a big generational gap between like us playing, there's a gap. And then there's like the new wave of ball players and like kids coming up in the game. And I'm like, I'm always, and that's something that I pitched to our new ecom director. I'm like, yo, we need to find new ways to like make not only Baseball Express exciting, but kind of hop on that train. Like you're riding, like you've kind of initiated this wave of like new stuff. And it's wild that you say that, how you know, like I have to say it gently. Oh, whoops. You say it gently. I'm like, I do the same thing, but I'm like, yo, there's so many up and coming brands. Like we started working with Kraken, who are doing some really amazing things. The Pine Tar brand doing some really cool stuff. You know, you got like Force 3 doing some cool stuff. We're starting to talk to this brand that makes batting gloves called Jax. Like there's so many up and coming brands. And I'm like, okay, we kind of need to scratch this traditional stuff. Like it's cool and all, like you still need it. You need to have it. But it's like, there's a whole nother side of the game that we need to really tap into. And like, you're tapping into it, and I'm like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening for sure.
Well, what I'm hearing right now is a Marucci Night Shift Baseball Express collab already starting to bubble up here.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, yeah, like I know you messaged us a while back, and for those who don't know, like Glovehead. So Glovehead's an interesting story. So, you know, I don't know if you've heard of his name's Chad. His name's Chad Johnson. He does a lot of the
Chad
glove
a long
stuff.
time.
Chad, yeah. So for a while he owned softball fans, and you know, softball fans, obviously we bought hardball fans and softball fans. Baseball Express, you know, bought them out a while ago, and I want to say a couple months ago, you know, I'm sitting here, like I've got a small collection of gloves. I think I told you a while back, like I ended up actually selling all my gloves and giving them to my brother because my brother was still playing. But I'm kind of starting my collection back up. I've got some gloves on my shelf at home, and
Nice.
and I was telling our guy Eric, his name is Eric Holstatter, and I was like, hey, you know, we need to, like, Chad has an account called Softball Fans. And I'm like, but there's nothing but it's a glove page. It's a glove love page. Like, that's what it is. And he was like, well, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, honestly, like, I'm going to do some searching. And like, there was you, and like, before I tapped into, cause I was, you know, doing all of our Baseball Express stuff. I hadn't even tapped into that side yet. And I was amazed at how big the glove community is on Instagram and on forums, bro. It's huge. It was like I was like, my eyes like got huge. I was like, I didn't even know that this side of Instagram existed. Like, it's insane. Like, I had never seen it before. And I was like, yo, Eric, we need to make something that pretty much, you know, with everything Chad does that works with brands, and he makes these custom models, these custom makeups, like, we need to like start partnering with brands. This was right before the holidays, so I knew there'd be a small delay, because when, you know, for us, we go on holidays, it's like we're holiday pushing, and then baseball season comes and we have a little bit more leeway. But I was like, we need to do something that resembles sneakerhead and gloves. And I was like, why don't we name it Glovehead? Like, let's just name it Glovehead. And we came up with that, and it stuck, and Chad was on board, and we were like, Softball Fans is no longer, brother, you're Glovehead. And that's what we're going to make. And we made that. I know you asked for merch a while back, and we are like, we can't, it just was really,
the logo's sweet.
The logo is sick. Yeah. It was funny. We had like 4 or 5 that came up. Our guys, kind of, our graphic guys came up, and they came up with some logos. And I was like, cause they come up with some that were real cookie cutter, like, oh, Glovehead, blah, blah. And I was like, no, this needs to be gritty. It needs to be like edgy, mean. It needs to look good. And I was like, because a lot of people were like, we need to do, there was another one. Maybe I'll shoot you the different ones just so you can see which ones we were dealing with on like off camera. And I was like, no, it needs to be this one. I had so much backlash, and I was like, no, like, I'm not budging. Like, it needs to be the one that everyone sees now. It needs to be that one, because it just fits perfectly, everything. And that's kind of where it came from. And like, we have so much, like, we have meetings set up in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to start putting out some merch and some hats and some good shit. And I'm like, yeah, we need to start making some exclusive. So, hey, if you're ever down, I got some ideas. But Chad does a good job. Chad does some good shit, man. But yeah, that's where like the whole Glovehead thing, and like, you're obviously a huge inspiration for that thing. Like, but yeah, man, we've got some stuff cooking. But yeah, that's kind of how, like, you personally probably about 80% inspired Glovehead, honestly.
Oh, stop. That's not true. Maybe 8%. I'll take an 8.
8%. That's what works for you. That's what works for you. But so, kind of going into, you know, we've been talking for a bit. So, kind of going into like Marucci, and I know you guys have a lot of stuff. I know you guys released some night shift stuff to a couple retailers here and there. What's on slate for 2023? Y'all have new models or anything like that? What's coming up for Marucci in 2023?
Yeah, lots of stuff. So we're going to continue doing night shift releases throughout 2023. Some at retail, some on our website. It just kind of depends.
Right.
We're not going to stick to like a traditional like glove of the month or, you know, monthly scheduled release, because that's just not really our style, and that's not really night shift style either. It's more like chaotic, and that's, you know, again, it's kind of intentional, but and that kind of, I would honestly, on your toes a little bit.
I think that gives you more of an exclusive factor to it. Like people are almost like biting at the bit to see when the next one's coming. You know, it's like you can do it that way, and I think you get more success that way, honestly, because people are more tuned in. They're always going to check your pages. They're always looking. They're always going, because, you know, you can be like the Rawlings, and nothing against Rawlings or Wilson, but they have that always going to happen. Glove of the month. It's
well, yeah, and they also have a more reliable, you know,
true.
consumer. Like, they have a bigger consumer base than we do at this point in time.
Right.
So it kind of keeps it more fun for us to not try to do exactly what they're already doing, and
go against the grain. Yeah.
And, you know, whatever. So we have we have a lot planned for 2023 that are coming in. And then Wild Card is another one that,
I saw that one. Yeah.
That has been received fairly well. I know people had issues getting them because we did do pretty small quantities because we're kind of at the mercy of how much waste material there is. So sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less. It depends on the time of year. Right. But the goal moving forward is to stock a Wild Card glove of some sort, whether that's a training glove or 11.5-inch iWave or something where you could go on our website and order this glove and not know what color it's going to come in
that would be
whenever
like
you want. Instead of just drops, it's going to be just available. And you order one, you don't like the colorway or it's weird or whatever, then you sell it to somebody and order another one and you can kind of just keep going that way. So keeps it fun. It makes unboxing really fun because people have no idea what they're about to get. And
that would be sick. So. That's a really interesting idea, honestly. Like it's like a mystery box. Like you have no idea what you're going to get. That kicks up not only like the name Marucci, but it's going to float you guys out there because that's going to, like, no one who's played baseball, I mean, has not traded a glove in their life. Like trading in baseball is like, it's hand in hand. Like everyone's done it and they're going to continue to do it. Like the amount of gloves that I've had that have passed and gone over, like I'll trade you this and bats and all that stuff. Like it's just how the game goes. And that's how like brands and models, like that's how they move. That's how they kind of spread throughout the game. Like, so that's y'all got it, man. Y'all got it nailed down. Y'all are doing some good shit, honestly.
And
y'all
something like that
stuff.
has to obviously be priced accordingly.
Yeah.
You're buying something that you don't know if you're going to like it or not, but
true.
The goal is just fun, right?
Keep the game fun, keep it interesting. Yeah, so I have to ask. So I know you said you're designing batting gloves. So how did that whole thing happen? How did you get into that? I mean, Glove Cowboy, gloves, batting gloves, I guess it makes sense. But I'd like to hear your take.
The same rationale that it was a coworker who is he's the head of our team sales department, Kyle Acord. I'm sure he'll appreciate the shout out. He was like, "Your Glove Cowboy, you're not fielding Glove Cowboy, so a glove is a glove. You can have defense and offense." And I'm like, it's kind of different, but let's see where your head's at. And I don't know. I mean, I was like, I'll give it a shot. Like I've never developed batting gloves before, but let's go for it.
Let's check it out. Yeah.
I actually love doing batting gloves because they're not as complicated and there's a lot more materials that you can use without getting
wasting a whole bunch
at you. Like
seriously.
And bags even more so. Bags, like the sky's the limit. There's a million different materials and kind of designs that you can implement into a bag.
Right.
So that's been really fun too. And then obviously Marucci owning Victus, it's allowed us to sort of develop with a totally different design intention because Victus is a very different brand than Marucci is. So some days, you have to put on your Victus hat and some days your Marucci hat and you can kind of kind of keep things fresh on both sides.
I know y'all got, that guy, his name's what, the Bat King, right? Is that his
Bruce,
name? The guy
awesome,
on Instagram does a lot of the stuff for Marucci and Victus. That guy does some good stuff too. But I know, what was I saying? I forgot. Y'all came to, I think I told you this actually, no, there's no way I would have told you. So y'all came down to our demo day in San Antonio, I think it was in October, and he brought out the new, I guess the Nox. I don't know if it's out yet or not, but he showed us the Nox. I'm not going to say anything if anybody hasn't seen it. If you came to the demo day, you know what I'm talking about. That thing, dude, is one of the coolest designs I've ever seen on a bat. I mean, that thing is nuts. All the different, I guess the word plays on there, the icons that are on there. I mean, the first Nox, it does mimic the first Nox, but this new one is on another
way
level.
More. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it is sweet.
I agree. I liked it so much that I stole that idea and put it on batting gloves and a duffel bag and a backpack. And all this other
dude. I mean, the pattern is unreal.
Really
I've never seen anything like it. I think the first Nox has it, but to be 100% honest, I hadn't swung it and seen it. Like I'd seen it and it's at our store and I've taken pictures of it, but I never really looked at it. But the minute he showed me that one, I looked at the older one and I was like, hey, this is a pretty sweet deal. And the cool thing, honestly, with if you're doing batting gloves, man, I think you can have a lot more creative aspect, because that's another piece of the game where people are getting a lot more creative with their batting gloves. I mean, you got guys like, but then again, it's the same concept as like there's the heritage brands that have always like Franklin and all those guys who make batting gloves, but they're not, they have the patterns. Like I think they've done like a Judge pattern, and they've done a couple like Stars and Stripes, and they have the poppy colors, but like to have something like maybe something that you've done on a glove in a batting glove would change that game too. Cause I mean, there's not a whole lot of people that are really like changing the batting glove game. I think from a batting glove perspective, you've got like Bruce Bolt, who've really, put their stamp on the game, and they're kind of taking it by storm at the moment. But that not only kind of hurts other brands, it doesn't hurt other brands, but it's kind of like, okay, what do we do? But now there's another gap. There's another gap that somebody can fill with, like, okay, they're doing it like this, but we're going to do it like this. We're going to make the same quality, high quality, cool gloves, but maybe put a twist like yours on there. That would be sick. That would be insane.
I agree. The first kind of attempt at something like that is Haley Cruz, who's a sponsored softball athlete of ours. She's great. Yeah. We developed a batting glove, her signature batting glove, in a couple different patterns where we used like sort of that 90s Saved by the Bell print, and sort of a jungle print on a batting glove, which again, I would love to do more of. And it's one of those things now where players aren't necessarily buying their traditional team colors, red, royal, navy, that's sort of starting to evolve. You got to have those for sure as an option. You have to. Yeah. You see the game, Bruce Bolt has done a great job with incorporating that workman
feel to it. Yeah.
Feel, and everybody's kind of done that since, we have the blacksmith batting glove, and I'm not saying it's exactly like the Bruce Bolts, but I think, one of the things that anytime we release a glove like that, it's like, tan palm like Bruce Bolt, so it's like they definitely created a new wave for sure, which is props to them, because their batting glove's awesome. Like it's durable, it looks good, it's simple branding. That lightning bolt, I think, is very recognizable at this point. It reminds me of the Wonder Boy from The Natural, so you have this sort of sentimental feel to it. So they've done a great job.
They have,
and they created their own lane, right? So high price point, super durable, so I think that's also good for baseball. But then what? Now what do you do? So I think,
exactly. That's
we're not going to try to chase anybody ever. So we're going to try to create something that's in the same vein of Night Shift, where it might not be appealing to literally everybody or the super traditionalists, but it's going to move the game forward, hopefully. So. That's what I'm saying, man, is like, if y'all are going into batting gloves, I'm like, I got to sit back and see how this folds out. Especially if you're doing it, man, I'm be like, hey, I got to see what's going on. Cause I mean, like you said, you don't necessarily have to chase them. You don't necessarily have to follow in that direction, but it's like, okay, look at the path that they're creating. And it's like, how can you branch off and create your own wave and create your own way to go? And I think that you've done a hell of a job in the glove world. And I think that the sky's the limit for you, man, if you're heading into bags. I mean, backpacks, bags, dude. I really want to give you a sneak peek of something. Can I do that?
Yeah, totally. For sure.
Can I grab a batting glove really quick?
Do it, yeah. Absolutely.
So just because we talked about both things now, but the Knox full wrap batting glove.
Yeah. Whoa. Those are nice.
This one incorporating that Knox pattern in a few different colors, but
with the full wrap,
wide cup neoprene, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, dude, that is
crazy.
That is sick. Oh my gosh.
So we'll be launching this one in this white, gray, silver colorway, and then also sort of like a Cactus Jack, Columbia blue, red, and black colorway.
Dude, yes.
Which I'll show you that one too off camera, but that one is, it takes a special player to rock something that unique, which is the goal, really.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like, I mean, you see it, bro. Like that's the beauty of the game is like, if you see these pro guys that are rocking some crazy stuff, if they're rocking crazy stuff, everyone else is going to follow suit. That's how the game rolls. 100%, so if you get these big time stars, like you got Judge, you got Julio Rodriguez rocking these. Lindor is another guy.
Incredible things, yeah.
Those guys who do who are changing and pacing the game differently, Acuna, all those dudes who are doing wild and like really making the game exciting. And you see them with the crazy cleats, you see them with the crazy bats, batting gloves. that trickles down, man. And I think that not only have they paved that way, it's inspired me, it's inspired you to do crazier things like that. And it builds, man. And I'm super like in a whole aspect of it, I'm pumped for what baseball is going to be doing in the next couple of years. It's going to be insane.
Me too, man. I can't wait to see the future.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks, Eric, for coming on, man. We really, really appreciate it. Do you have anything else to say to the people, to the fans out there? Any last kind of comments or anything that Marucci's got coming up that you might want to just hint at, just throw out there a little jab, anything like that?
Oh man, just stay tuned. Follow me if you want. Follow Glovehead. Follow Baseball Express. Buy all of your products at Baseball Express, nowhere else. And we'll see what happens. It'll be a fun year.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you for coming on, brother. We really appreciate it. You don't have to hang up immediately. I'm going to end it and then we can say, kind of talk a little bit, but
okay.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, follow Glove Cowboy. He's got some really cool stuff on there. If you're a glove connoisseur, he's got all the good stuff on there, man. He's got some crazy stuff, but yeah, for sure. This episode will be out next Friday. And it'll be on all streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. So once again, guys, thanks Eric for coming on, and thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.